as a sub, you have to be able to be like, hey, like I don't feel that, and not feel pressured into it.
That's a huge red flag, right? I mean,
Yeah.
if you can safe word, if you can say like I no longer want to do this and feel supported, that's a green flag for sure. And if you are in a position where you say, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore, and somebody says, okay, well, yeah, there's consequences to that, or if they go like, oh, okay, well, then I'm taking this away, that's not a good way to act.
Welcome to the Ask Ezra Intimacy Coaching Podcast, a peek behind the curtain of some of the most intimate conversations that people have with Ezra as an intimacy coach.
Welcome to the Ask Ezra Intimacy Coaching Podcast. This particular episode takes a bit of a turn from our normal format. As opposed to doing an intimacy coaching session, we have a participant from the Radical Sexual Acceptance Research Study. We will hear from them before the study, and we'll also hear from them after the study, and we'll get a chance to hear about reflections and their opinions of the experience. And it's important to note that many research studies will not go this path. They will not give a voice to the participants. And I think even though it is not often done this way, it was really important for me to do this because this research is really about the participants' experience. It's not enough to just measure the effects that the intervention has on different factors. It is essential that we give that participant a voice and use testimonials. And what better way than to give a chance for a participant to come on and share my platform so that they can use their own words and share directly with you.
When I see myself, like the dysmorphia gets real. Like, I still see who I was sometimes. Like I'm only 9 months in, which is still pretty early. But or actually like I'm still in the middle of month nine. Um and like it's like see cis women, and then I get like the gender envy, and like there's like, all that questioning that goes on in your head.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I guess like the big thing would probably be like working through like the confidence in my identity, being comfortable with like my body, and then like working on the things I can change. Also like the foreplay. I really kind of like enjoy that, and I kind of need that more now because like the changes in my body are no longer like where it was prior. I could just kind of like have a mental image, be able to pleasure myself to that, and be able to continue. And it was like really rapid. Now it's like this kind of like there's like this threshold that I have to like pass, and it's different, but it's
Mm-hmm.
also really kind of like fun exploring that. And the for me, like the excitement, and for me, like the level of pleasure is so much more like dramatic, like, and I really love that. So I guess in that, now that I feel a little bit more kind of segmented in where I'm at, I want to kind of, you know, meet groups where it's like one safe, um, friendly, and also like, people that have like experience. Because one of the things too is like it's kind of like when you get sick and you go on Google, and you have a cough and a fever, and all of a sudden Google says you have cancer, and
Mm-hmm.
you're just like, oh my God, right? And so there's all this information on the internet, which is great, but it's not really curated, and that's like one of the difficult things. And I've also heard from some like experienced subs in like different like online communities where like they were like in a position where someone that was saying they were dominant had experience, and then they ended up getting kind of like physically hurt. So that
Mm-hmm.
to me, I think, is like one of the important things. And if I like do find a partner that is like new to that too, I don't want to turn that down, but I want to be able to like responsibly like have that like conversation, see like what their needs are, and also like what my needs are, and like meet both of them.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and like really be able to understand what risks you're taking and have that risk profile conversation, that risk awareness conversation, right?
Yeah. And that's, I think, one of the most important things in any kind of relationship. And even more like jokingly like a vanilla relationship. It's, you're with your partner, it's you're trying to meet the satisfactions of
Mm-hmm.
both parties. And being able to communicate that like is healthy. And I think that both partners have to be kind of receptive, but also, you know, acknowledging the boundaries and very respectful of that, because it's where like boundaries and communication aren't really kind of there, that things kind of just go like derailed and ends up horrible.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what has been your experience so far with exploring kink and dominant submission? Is it like purely research? Have you had some experiences personally, or, where are you at?
I would say that I'm pretty early on. I am I am familiar with kink because I went to SF State, and over there it was a very like, San Francisco is awesome. Um, there was a Folsom Street Fair. Everyone was like like actual like dungeons and doms that were like educational and like checking in to see if you're safe. I played around a little bit with it. Like I love like collars, and I love, like that, like, like I'm kind of a brat sometimes, and I love it when like I have like a dom that could like pull me around. But two experiences have been really positive, and then I had like one experience not be so positive, where that person didn't mean harm, but they were not really sure how to do something, and then they went a little too far, and I
Mm-hmm.
had to cut that off. And and I think too, like, as like what I'm learning is like as a sub is like you kind of control that power play, really. I think that like kink, for like the way that we portray it in society is like so shameful, but it's so weird because it's so liberating.
Mm.
And I think that it's like we need more conversations like this, because like instead of it being like some kind of repressed shadowy thing, like it should be like something where just like, hey, like, are you down for that? And I'm like, yeah, I'm down for that. Like that would, for me, I think that would make life so easier and like so much more fun. Like, if I wanted to go find something and be like, that, okay, cool. And then just,
With regard to that kink exploration and DS exploration is a challenge for you, if there's anything there that's challenging?
I think like some of the challenging thing is like, I would say there's a couple of different barriers because it's like a system. There's
Mm-hmm.
like you as like as a person who are looking to fulfill some needs and explorations and are curious. I think like one, like finding like quality information that is like reliable and, like really kind of well organized is important. Because like right now, especially when we live in a world full of misinformation. Two, I think that there needs to be like an easier way that like we begin to like reduce these barriers of access and start like actually talking about it
Mm-hmm.
and normalizing it. I especially feel kind of like at at kind of like a high school age, even, because like kids are going to be experimenting, like, and I think like even just introducing the idea of like there are these resources here that you can learn
Yeah.
and pick that up, is because you're going to go get hurt. You're, like you're going to
Mm.
do something stupid, and you know and then too, like I think like being able to like, as someone that's like new, like when I first heard about dungeons and munches, I was just like, what the hell is this? Like I had no idea. Um and I had to kind of go onto like Google and Yelp and be like, what is this?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it feels like sometimes it's very like down low, and I hate that. I have a background in like UX, and I always like, we describe it kind of like John Colco's like version, where it's just like there's so many things that are intermingled, and it's like kind of this like really messy system,
And
and
what's
it's hard.
UX?
UX, user experience.
User experience. Thank you.
Yeah. So basically, like when we're like addressing these, like there's so many touch points and there's such diversity in this system that like it can be really difficult to be like there's a streamlined answer, and like there's not, like, which is not bad, but it's also like how do we like, you know, how do we start adapting, and things change so fast too. Like I have ADHD, and sometimes like I'm kind of like I need a partner too that like, it's kind of like, okay, like you're gonna go like be nonverbal for a little bit, and or you're gonna be like, like crazy and info dump on something and get excited. And how
Mm-hmm.
do I calm you down? And then like, if and then I'm really shy when I first come up to someone, but once I get comfortable, it's like basically a little gremlin that's just you just like feed it and just keep it like at arm's length. Otherwise, it's gonna like set things on fire. Not just like jokingly, but like um and I think that like it's for people that are neurodivergent. I think it's really important that like we like start looking at programs that could kind of like integrate that or like help kind of like
Mm-hmm.
build that. And and that's there's a lot of things like in that where you have to be sensitive to those lived experiences too. Like, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like I don't like I'm more so like discussing it more than being like able like here's an answer, because we need to like bring them in and then like help understand their life experiences, their needs, and then like have them co-develop with us. And I think that's also one of the really beautiful things about the kink community is that as kind of like distant as it could feel sometimes, like in the sense of like being able to kind of break in as someone new,
Mm-hmm.
um it's the people that I have met like over in San Francisco, the people that I've met here in Los Angeles are so welcoming and so warm and so very like patient and understanding. And I think it's because it's a very diverse community, and they like everyone involved kind of understands, what it's kind of like. I'm ambiverted, but I lean more towards the introverted aspect of
Mm-hmm.
myself. And like I guess like the sub aspect of me too is like, oh man, like I get shy around people. It's kind of like finding a feral raccoon, and you just have to like give it like potato chips, and it's just like squeak squeak squeak, and then like after a while it's just gonna be at your window every day and be like, hey, potato chips. um so like that's like that's like a really good point. And I think like shows like this too are so good because it's like not only like in a discussion, like being able to sort all these things out, but
Mm-hmm.
like if I feel like if someone else like who's also kind of going through that like ADHD, like oh my god thing, trying to figure it out, this is some like a really awesome resource for them to like be like, oh yeah, hey, that's really great.
And you came on to the show because you've been listening to the show, is that right?
Yeah, I follow your Instagram page. I've been like checking all the clips, and um it's been like actually just a great resource because it's so organic, and it's not this like it's not very like it's not rigid in the sense that like it's kind of like it feels fake. It's like very like these lived experiences from people that are like,
Mm,
hey, we're exploring this, we're going through this together. And that to me builds like this sense of community. And
yeah.
you know there again, like that's like how do you kind of like sift through and identify like, was it quality information that is good for you? And I feel for me that was something that was really important. And like what I would love to say is like to my like trans siblings, this is like something that we should be more involved in. Like even if we're like if some folks fall into like the vanilla aspect, because like it's really about making like this place like a lot safer for everyone and making us all feel included.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes like it shifts. Like I used to be completely vanilla, and then like in coming out there was a lot of like hormone changes, like feelings, explorations, and then
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and it's kind of like you can fluctuate and you could go and try different things, like, and you can always be like, okay, not for me, or this was a good fun time for this, but whatever. And I think that it's so healthy, and to like the ability to be able to satisfy your needs I think is a really big part of mental health and physical health. Like,
Mm,
you know, sometimes like I just want that, I want that stimulation, or I want that, like, I demand the cuddles, like, or I demand something. And it's
yeah.
just like, yeah. And it's just great to know that there's a way to be able to sift through that, understand, and then learn how to create those dialogues and build those relationships. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that, like, I demand attitude, right? And I think it's so funny because, like, our society frowns upon selfishness, but I
hmm,
think that in the bedroom, selfishness is wonderful to say,
yeah,
okay, it's my turn, especially
yeah,
for people who felt really disempowered with regard to their pleasure, to be able to step into that power and say, okay, it's time for me to get mine. This is what you're going to do so that I can get mine.
yeah. And that, like, with my partners, like, I'm just clear with them. It's like, if you have hoodies and you have a couch, like, I'm stealing all your fucking hoodies. I'm gonna like throw myself onto the couch. I'm gonna demand like an hour of like cuddles and affirmation, and then I can do whatever like we like can mutually do after. Like, I
Uh-huh.
need that.
Yeah.
And then too, like, my partners are just like, okay, cool. And then like they're all, we really want this. And I was like, all right, yeah, I'm down. And then like it's just that it's empowering. And like, as someone that's a sub, I think one of the other most empowering things is that, like, when your top is trying to like ask for something, they need, like, you have to understand, as a sub, like, as a
Hmm.
bottom, you have the power to say no, or you have the power to say yes.
Hmm.
And your top or your dom has to respect that. And that for me was like, when I had a dom be like, okay, like, I want like this and I want that. And I was just like, on my period, and I was like, no. And they're like, oh, okay. And they're like, are you? And it was just like that care that came in. And I feel that was like also how I could identify like a really good quality partner,
Hmm.
was like, you know, human bodies are human bodies. Like, they're not always gonna be like feeling the best. Sometimes you're just gonna not feel it. And as a sub, you have to be able to be like, hey, like, I don't feel that, and not feel pressured into it. And
Yeah.
it's yeah.
That's a huge red flag, right? I mean,
Yeah,
if you can safe word, if you can say, like, I no longer want to do this, and feel supported, that's a green flag for sure. And if you are in a position where you say, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore, and somebody says, okay, well, yeah, there's consequences to that. Or if they go like, oh, okay, well, then I'm taking this away. That's not a good way to act. And it's not to say that they're bad people, but they need a little bit of education on
yeah,
how to act better. Azalea, I want to talk to you about the Radical Sexual Acceptance Research Project,
yeah.
because you are soon to be a participant. Is that right?
Yes, yes, I am.
Fantastic. And we
Yeah.
talked about this ahead of time, so I'm not outing you as part of
No,
this.
no. I think that this is fucking awesome. Sorry, like, I cuss a lot, but
It's okay.
um
Yeah.
okay, no, I think this is fucking awesome because, like, we need like a lot more of like research into all this. And I think like
Hmm.
being able to jump in and have fun, like I love it. And the oh my God, like, the bonus of being able to get like a class with you, like, that is, I can't even say like how awesome and how big of like just a thing that is. Um, so yeah, like, what do we need to touch base on? Like, I love
Well,
talking
yeah.
about this.
Well, I was going to say, how did you hear about the study?
Um, I heard it through the LGBTQ Center from the Trans Lounge. Um, and I had gone to an event over at the Trans Lounge for, I think, Christmas, because I was coaxed out of my hobble with food and promised a drink. And I had the absolute pleasure of meeting you there. And after kind of going through some of the Trans Lounge events, I saw that there was like the option for the study. And looking into that, I was like, wow, this is super great. Like, this is not only a great way to kind of give back to the community, but
Hmm.
also to just, be a part of something that like helps me explore and understand and like elevate myself to like I guess like my higher like sub goddess.
I like that. I'm gonna write that down. Higher sub goddess. And what did you hope? I mean, what are you hoping to get out of it? We're sort of um in an interesting state where we've got like you finished the assessments, but we haven't started coaching yet. So like what are you hoping to get out of it? And also like what has your experience been so far with the assessments?
Yeah. So I really love the assessments. I think that they were really great and kind of like making you think about certain things and like understanding. Like it was very like a reflective process for me because I was like, hey, like I see there's contradictions. Like I feel super like driven for this, but then I feel like very like held back for this. And I think those are great things because they help me identify like certain stuff that I can start working on and like changing. And like it's also doing my due diligence. So like one of the things I realized was like I was like, hey, like I'm not being as confident as I should. And we had a conversation where you're just like, no, you're like over at the table at that trans lounge Christmas event. And I can't remember exact wording, but it was like something to like, you just gotta like be confident and affirm. And I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do that. And then I had a body count of like 18 people. um yeah. So that was like, and this is still like, and I want to say this is still with dysmorphia. This is still being like 9 months in,
Mm-hmm.
that the confidence makes such a difference. Like putting myself out there. Like I did a photo shoot with Temple of Nyx, really awesome photographer in downtown LA. And I was like in a bra and like, like stockings, and I love it. Like I put that image of me everywhere. And it's just like I wanted to affirm that. And I feel that assessment alone and being able to kind of like, okay, come to terms with myself and being honest, helped me make that first step. And I'm excited for the coaching because I feel like that's not like my body count's 18. Like I'm gonna go for like 1800. I want to like a pentakill. Back to that. Sorry, I'm like a huge e-girl. But that like that to me is just like so like invaluable. And
Uh-huh.
it's just the power of these like small things that lead up to this bigger thing is so great. And where I see like in a non greedy area, where I see it as like kind of going back to the community, is this is an opportunity to like really kind of give back in my capacity to the community, to like my trans siblings, to like my queer friends,
Mm-hmm.
like, and just like even cis people, because like these experiences and being able to understand and kind of like continue these programs is so detrimental to us. And especially in a time where like we've kind of come to like realize our mental health is so important. And like part of that is like being comfortable with our bodies, understanding our journeys, and then like also like exploring our bodies and our pleasure and not feeling ashamed of it.
I usually give people an opportunity and say, if you want people to get a hold of you, how can you do that? If you want to, make yourself available that way, you're certainly welcome to.
Yeah, okay. So I'm available on Instagram and Discord. My Discord is slimegirl 0853. Again, that's slimegirl hashtag 0853. And on Instagram, I'm at the Black Azalea. I would love to, like, if anyone has questions or if anyone is like trying to hit me up, like, come by. Like, I think that's super great. Or even if you're a part of a community and are like doing things like, having these dungeons and munches, and you want to invite more people, I would love to. Like, that would be so great. And if anything, like, we could always like go pawn little kids on Overwatch or League of Legends together.
If you like the Ask Ezra podcast, then let me know. Comment on your favorite episode. Let us know what you enjoyed or what you'd like to see more of. Welcome, Azalea, back to the Ask Ezra Intimacy Coaching Podcast.
Hey, it's great to be back.
Yeah, it's great to have you. And it has been maybe 6 or 8 weeks since we did the last recording.
Yeah, it's been a bit.
It's been a little bit. And since we did the recording, you have gone through this radical sexual acceptance research study project, right?
Yeah. Oh my God. That was so fucking great. That research project, I'm just like really happy to be a part of it, and it was so fucking awesome.
You're so kind. Thank you. Well, I want to ask, well, like, what was your expectation for the study moving into it?
I always kind of go into these studies really kind of like we had gone over RSA a little bit, like at the beginning to kind of like get in like on what we're doing. Like we had that like intro tasks and so forth. And so I was kind of excited. I was like, okay, well, I might see some like emoticum of like change, but overall, like the change and stuff has been like really great. Like the study the study itself was surprising, and just like the leaps and bounds that it made, like which not to say that I wasn't being like, okay, like RSA isn't gonna like change everything, but I didn't if expect it to be as effective.
Fantastic. So, was there any part of it that was surprising to you?
I think like the part that was really surprising was really kind of crafting it so that it's addressing like the things that you want and that you need, and really kind of like focusing on like the baby steps. I think
Hmm.
those baby steps, like, because it's really daunting to be like, oh, you need to see like this much progress in like one day and like in this much time, but the kind of like transforming that time into be like, okay, like it's if you can make this one initial step, that means that you're on that like journey to continue on, and then you kind of snowball. And I think that was what made it so accessible as like a participant, that it was like that pressure that's usually kind of an obstacle to like to succeed kind of like shifted and was just like, no, it's just like this is all about you and what you need, and it's catering to like your desires. It's like,
Hmm.
can you apply it to this and can you apply it to that? And the answer was yeah. And then like it was more about just kind of like, all right, like where are my comfort zones, and then like how far am I willing to go outside of that, and then what's safe, and then how can I start exploring those like those spaces little by little. It's kind of like when you're in an MMO and you're like the newbie with a little sprout on your head, and you're like running around and like your entire map is black, and then all of a sudden you start discovering these areas, and it's just like, whoa, like this area is really great for like EXP grinding, this area is gonna kill me like this area is
Hmm.
like, you know it's really fun because like that's where a bunch of other people hang out, like, and you start really kind of like finding yourself and like your community. And that to me was probably like the best part, and it gives you all the tools necessary to thrive in that at your pace. And I think those are like the two important things. It's just like your pacing that you set as a participant, and then having the tools and resources to be able to kind of like shift through and be like, okay, I need this tool or I need this tool, and this works for me, so I could have this like this loadout, or I could have like this approach to it using these like these tools that were given to me, or these resources.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So just in case somebody doesn't know, what does MMO stand for?
A massive multiplayer online game.
Okay.
I'm a virtual head, so I'm always in like VR and building virtual worlds and doing weird stuff, but I'm also just a really huge gamer, and my comfort zone is always just thinking about like the video games, like, and I think that's also kind of like what helped me with this was like I saw those baby steps as like, okay, like this is kind of like this like really great like strategy guide to what you want to do.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
then you're able to kind of just like start experience grinding on your own, like, in the way that you feel most comfortable. Um,
Yeah. I
yeah.
love that analogy. So like, radical sexual acceptance as a strategy guide.
Yeah, honestly it is.
Well, and I think it's this weird paradox of, for the research study, we only have 4 sessions.
Mm,
And 4 hours might feel like a lot, but in terms of an intervention, it's a really small amount of time,
yeah.
right? I mean, we're not talking about a year, we're not talking about 6 months, we're talking about like 6 weeks of coaching, right? 4 to 6 weeks of coaching. And what I really focus on is saying, like, hey, look, here are these tools. and we can work with these tools together, but you can also work with these tools on your own.
Yeah.
And so my hope is that we can move the needle like a little bit in the 4 weeks, but it's really more about proving to you that the needle can move with these tools, and then you can move on, for the rest of your life. You can keep moving that needle, taking those baby steps, implementing that strategy, and making a difference to live the life you want to live.
Oh, definitely. And I think that you're like that needle analogy is like super spot on, because it's like it kind of goes through those baby steps. It's like if you have this like there is like these like different things like beliefs and stories, but like basically the way that you're like able to like see those changes in your life through using these tools, I think was like the really big thing. And I think that's what kind of leads it to that snowballing. And honest, like with like just the 4 sessions, there was so much that kind of like just I felt like I bursted out through. But I also feel that like it's kind of like when you're like, okay, I want to do like another MMO analogy, because like that's
Sure.
all I am able to. It's like you see like there's this really big like boss monster and there's a really awesome treasure behind it. And you
Uh-huh.
want that like armor because it's like the best in game, it's best in the slot. And you're trying so hard to go through. But individually, like you can't like get past a certain like mechanic, or you can't get past a certain phase. And I feel like having that guidance is like having that like party member that's able to keep you up and like help you push over that like initial hurdle. And honestly speaking, like I would love to be like continuing on with something like this. It's like, right now we're all like in a like a little recession, so it's kind of hard, but like this is like something that I feel would be like more of an investment than it would like an expenditure, because this not only applied to like one aspect of my life, but it was like multifaceted. And that was kind of the like the huge thing about this is that if you're able to take a step in like one direction, let's say that you want to be like the world's first for Final Fantasy or something, or you want to be like, the best like Twitch streamer, right? You can use these tools to kind of like get any mental blockages out and start moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
And let's say that there's something personal, like you're like, I want to like be able to like set a routine for myself to start making like, to like run a marathon, and that's like my dream. You can apply those to that same goal. And like this is just it could go to like interpersonal, it can go to like, like self-improvement and self-love, it can go to like career, and it could go to like just basically anything that you're trying to do. And it's such like, again, like it's just such a powerful tool. And I feel more, instead of just a strategy guide, it's like when you get like that collector's edition, and it comes with like all these really premium things. Like you get the strategy guide, you get like, like bonus content in game, you get like all these like cool collector items. And that's kind of like the satisfaction and the feeling that you get out of that, because like then you're able to be like, okay, well, alone my meter was here, but after these exercises my meter was here. And then with guidance and with like this support system that like you build through this mentorship in this program, your meter like moves all the way over here. So you're like way closer to all your goals each time that you're like seriously participating and like doing the homework, like being like honest about like, hey, this is where I am on this gauge. Like, and I feel that like that's what's so critical. And like we really need that. Like, um I hope like I'm not just running off on an ADHD tangent, but
No, I mean, it sounds good to me. I mean, it sounds like this is your experience, right?
yeah,
And I think, you mentioned it's an investment more than an expenditure. I think that's really powerful, right? Because what we're working on is your ability to move through the world the way that you want to.
yeah,
And so that money is going to come back to you, right? And I'm fully aware that one-on-one coaching is not something everyone can afford, right? It's not typically covered by insurance, and that's why I'm offering a weekly group session at like way less of a rate from a one-on-one session. I think you pay around the cost of a one-on-one session, but you get 4 group sessions a month. So
Okay.
that could be, yeah, definitely.
To me, that's a steal because like I think like that's also addressing like all the barriers and like
Mm-hmm.
this for me, I've been approached by so many coaches before. A lot of them for like career stuff and like, what I want to do. And like this is the first time I was like, okay, I felt a certain way, like I want to take a leap of faith. And when like I had the pleasure of talking with you, and so I was like, okay, like Ezra's legit, Ezra's super fucking cool. I'm sorry if I'm cussing too much. And this study seems like something like I really want and that could potentially help. So I was trying to like kind of like keep my like expectations like modest. I think that overall, like this is something that I was like, I would love to continue. And as someone that is facing like financial barriers themselves, like that group session, like I would jump on it. Like I am going to jump on it.
Yeah. No, and I
Yeah.
think it would be lovely to have you too, because you've already been using these tools. You've already been on the path. And so it's really valuable to have you in the room, because I think there's going to be people who go like, I don't know. I don't know if this really works. Is this building up to something? Is this, am I getting tricked or whatever, right? And you get to stand there and say like, this is working for me and this is what I'm working on. And I think the group session is really valuable because it reminds you you're not alone, right?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think that's one of the biggest challenges with this work, is that it feels really isolating sometimes. It can feel really scary to be like, I don't feel right in my body, or I don't feel right with my sexuality.
Yeah.
And to get in a room with some people who are also having those challenges, I think that's really powerful. And honestly, Azalea, I feel like half of the value that I bring to the table is like, I'm on the path too. Like, I'm not here because I'm done. I'm not here because I figured everything out. I'm here because I'm figuring it out, and I want to help you along the pathway too. There is this experience people have where it's like they sort of think about growth as like a quality, right?
Yeah.
Like, I have the quality of growing. And I think that's really an unfortunate misunderstanding, because it's not a quality, it's a condition, it's an experience, it's a phase. It's like if you're working out, then you are often in the phase of muscle growth or weight loss, right? And
Yeah.
the more time you spend in that phase, the more results you're going to get, right? And it's not to say like I am weightlifting, like I am a person that is muscle bound. I'm just in the condition of having muscles because I have put in this energy and this work to build muscles, right? And so I
Yeah.
think it's the same way with this, intrapersonal growth, where if you want to be grown, then you have to spend time in a phase of growth. And it's not going to be done in one day. It's not going to be done in 1 week. It's not even going to be done in the 4 sessions. It's about getting back to the table and saying, okay, what do I need to do to grow, to move forward, to be what I'm hoping to be, what I'd like to be, right?
Yeah. And I think that's the hard part. Like I'm gonna admit right here, right now, I'm one of the most impatient people in the world. And if anyone else is like in a tarot or whatever, like everyone's like getting tower moments and getting all this. And it's like it's that pain of just like wanting to have the things that you deserve and wanting to be like there already. And it's like no one wants to go through the journey. Tying this back again into like the program, it's like once you have that, once you have these tools and once you see that you can do it, you're able to kind of take control of that meter anytime you want, and go at your own pace and understand like to change your perspective on stuff. I think that's like one of the big things too. It's like it's not a quality, it's a condition. And I can take the status condition anytime I want, and I could also put it down to rest for a bit and go back and like at my pace again, like
Mm-hmm.
all about you and your pacing and your goals and your growth and your timeline. And I think too, like we also think as time is so like we have to achieve this by this age or this thing. And I think that's so toxic. On your journey, where are you going? Because you're gonna get hit by different life conditions and stuff. And again, like these tools like help kind of prep you to be like, okay, well, that's out of my control. Oh well, I'm gonna go focus on what I can do. And it's okay, like to have days where you're just like, F everything, I'm gonna go have a vodka soda.
Right. Well, and I love it. You came to the topic of pace a couple times now, and
Yeah.
I love that. And I think it's so important to have compassion for our own pace, for the pace that we have, because we couldn't possibly have a different pace, and we can only beat ourselves up for not having a different pace, right? And if we can accept the pace that we have, it's going to be so much more pleasant,
Yeah.
right? So I wanted to share screen for a second
Yeah.
and just show the cycle of radical sexual acceptance. So I'm sure you're totally familiar with this. We worked with this, countless times. But I wanted to ask you which component feels like it was the most helpful for you.
Imagine story is an experiment.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I don't want to get too much into this because I definitely think that anyone watching this needs to kind of like just come out and try this, sign up with you ASAP. But imagine really kind of help made me visualize all those pros that I wanted so much
Mm-hmm.
against those cons, that I was able to start jumping into those other steps. And it helped kind of like when I was at like the narratives about like ourselves and others, and then the steps to actually start doing stuff and then building like networks to like uphold me. So it all kind of starts from just like your imagination. I think it's like that, like um you know wanting, like when you have a dream for something, it's just like I want to be like the next big content creator, or I want to be the next big like um was it like I want to be like the female Jeff Bezos. I want to be like a dark overload, right? Like, sorry. And where do I imagine myself and what are the steps? And I think that would be like that's how you kind of like you go. But I would say don't become evil overlords, become really good vegans of hope. Um, and with that, it's just once you kind of start getting into these cycles and you start identifying like, okay, like this is like my process and this is what's helping me the most. You can mix and match those tools and you just keep going through that for anything that you're doing. And then I would say that um it all just starts from like where do you want to be? What are those pros? And the more that you focus on like those things that you really want, like the more that they're gonna come in. And it's hard. Like it's hard being patient sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's also part of the conditioning, is that you have to learn to be like, you know, accept where you're at and accept like the conditions and be like kind to yourself about all that.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely. Being kind to yourself is super important. I mean, it's like taking a road trip. If you had a choice to pick a buddy to take a road trip with you, and you had a choice between somebody who was kind to you and somebody who was mean to you, I
yeah,
mean, wouldn't you pick the person who's going to be kind to you?
yeah,
And so, and you are your own passenger in a way. And so, if you can choose an attitude, why, choose one of kindness, choose one of generosity, of patience.
yeah, and we do like I think too, like we're always so hard on ourselves. We're always saying like we're not
Hmm.
kind enough. We're always saying that we're not good people. But like honestly, if we take a step back and we think about it, it's like, we are going through like a really turbulent time. And I think that we're so hypercritical of like ourselves and what we're expected to do, that sometimes we forget to take care of ourselves and like, be like kind to ourselves. It's like sometimes you just need that treat. Like sometimes you need that like pep talk in the mirror. Sometimes you need like um, you know, things that are just like little reminders of like where you are on your journey and how far you've come along. And I think that's like huge because we always see people who are at the end of their journey or like farther along in their journey, I should say, then we like look at like what they've done and like how they got there.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is what we need to kind of like focus on ourselves. Is just like I'm not even the same gender I was when I was born. Like I know it was like so much has changed. And I think that there is a huge thing about like just learning to be like, this is who I am and this is what I accept and this is what I love about myself. Um, and like once you hold that, like once that's like you, that's so much in your power that no one can really take that away from you. And I think that's like one of the most powerful things you can do on this journey is like know your power.
Absolutely. So I think you mentioned this already, but would you recommend participating in either the research study or in general with radical sexual acceptance?
100% of both. 100% of both. I think the research study for anyone that is still kind of like, shy or kind of like not certain is a really great way to kind of like just, I'm not even saying break the ice, just like smash on through there. Like you're going to be like a comet, just keep fucking mass murdering dinosaurs. And once you hit that, like, it's like, it becomes like that gateway drug to like self-love and self-development. It's it's like it's it's like the McDonald's McRib. It's like once it's there, it's like you always want it. You're always hunting for it.
I'm laughing because I'm like just picturing that analogy completely out of context. Like radical sexual acceptance, smash the dinosaurs. No explanation.
Premium marketing right there. Just...
There you go. Yeah, that's what they say. Confuse the audience is the goal of marketing. Well, fantastic. Thank you, Azalea, for your participation in the research study and for your willingness to come on the show and share your experience.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. Thank you for doing this research study. I know like I'm kind of gushing all over it, but like it was just such like a radical transformation for me. And it was such just a useful device that like I'm like legitimately like honest about all this. It's something that we really do need. And I feel it's something that like especially right now for like the queer and trans community that could be like super helpful because we get like put through so much external pressure that the self-love and the self-care that we give ourselves is so critical.
And for people who want to get involved, there's going to be a whole bunch of links in the show notes. There is a free ebook for people who want to learn more about radical sexual acceptance. We have the weekly group sessions that I mentioned, which are basically 75% off because you're paying once per month instead of once per session. And we're also going to be doing weekend workshops where, let's say you don't want to do it one session at a time, you want to get it all done in one weekend, then let's do it. So we've got weekend workshops you can sign up for. And for a limited time, there's also slots available for the research study. And that is no cost to participate. You do have to spend a number of hours doing surveys. So you kind of pay for it in labor in a way, but basically you get $1,000 worth of coaching at no cost. So I do think, take Azalea's word for it. It's worth doing.
Yeah, I would say that like joining on the research center is one the most like that is like the like that's I feel like that's steal, honestly. And then two, I think once you're like done on like through the research like project, you're gonna want more. I definitely want to sign up for classes, like, and that's like my goal right now is taking these so that I could like land some more stable work and then be able to continue on with this, because this is like, like I'm going to continue to grow. Like I feel like named after a flower, identifying as floras, like it's about that growth. And I feel like this is like that perfect like greenhouse to just be able to do that, and anyone else that's out there like look, going through their journey or looking for tools and resources, or is like ready to take that first step. I think that this is like the best opportunity. And I feel that through any of these channels, be it like this participating in the study, sorry, like something over my words, participating in the study or doing the weekend classes or even doing the group, is gonna like again snowball you into going on to that, just like taking that leap and doing the one-on-ones, because again, like these are all investments, and these are investments in like anyone else but yourself. And I like think that it's just gonna like speak for itself once you're inside the program.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Azalea. Thank you again for coming on the show and for your, honest and really enthusiastic participation in the research.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Thanks for watching the Ask Ezra Intimacy Coaching Podcast. Support our show at patreon.com/AskEzra. Join us at the personal growth tier and receive a special thank you on the next podcast episode. A very special thank you to both Sarah Nash and Deb Matson for being Patreon supporters at the personal growth tier and helping make the Ask Ezra Intimacy Coaching Podcast possible.